Twitless, what are we talking about this evening?
We are talking about Vatican City #2, part two of a 3-issue run by Per Berg on art and Mark Millar writing. And the Vatican City is under siege by what seem to be millions of vampires who are taking over like the entire planet. And Vatican City is one of the last holdouts because they have a secret buried underneath the city, underneath the Vatican itself. And in this issue, the vampires who are sieging that city try to dig deeper and uncover their vampire queen to bring about an age of darkness. And our ragtag group of survivors on the inside, led by the new Swiss guard Guido, try to resist them and try to get to the queen before they can.
So, reading this issue, I was a little bit taken aback how this is just a 3-issue miniseries, and already we're at the filler issue stage. I didn't feel like there was a lot of meat on the bone. Reading this, it was kind of just checking boxes of, yeah, we need to know a little bit of lore on the vampires. We need to know what the Vatican is doing, throwing all this ancient treasure trash in the basement. And I guess we need to know what the big bad is going to be, this queen. And really the only setup we get for the queen is, the image at the end, which is a big reveal. We also see a little bit of a reference of when the vampires were ruling the earth, with the building the pyramids, and of course all the standard cliche things that a secret race would do once their master plan and presence has been revealed. And you get this really awesome image from Perberg of this big grotesque ogre-like vampire with this big metal hood on its head, just destroying everything in this bloody flaming scene. But nothing really moving the story forward, unfortunately. So it's a serviceable issue, but not a very meaningful issue in terms of what is the actual conflict of all these trapped people in the Vatican trying to survive this new vampire apocalypse that's fallen upon them.
I'm glad you brought up that page because it is Lovecraftian. It is clearly meant to channel a sort of Lovecraftian idea. I think Mark Millar's even naming of during the Age of Nosferatu, naming of the demon kind of actually alludes to the sort of like hyphenated Lovecraftian deities. So it's clearly meant to evoke some of that spirit. Perberg expertly delivers on that feeling with this kind of like eclipse, black moon kind of, or eclipsed sun or something, blood sun, blood moon, something going on there. Perberg is drawing his heart out.
Yeah.
On the page, literally bleeding on the page, I think, and it shows. I do agree, though. So far, I think in this issue, especially, you start to see that Perberg is carrying this book on art vibes alone. The story itself is not carrying nearly as much as Perberg's energetic, even frenetic art style is.
That makes me sad. Okay, first off, I have a hot take about what Twitless just said. Why does everything have to be why does everything have to be chthonic just because there's a like an old dead god, buried underneath ruins? Like, was that invented by one guy in Massachusetts in like 1890? Like, this
he's got the hyphenated name. Like, it wasn't just the imagery. It was like, let me do like the Yog Sothoth thing. Like, that's clearly a trope.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everything kind of has to tip its hat in that direction. It still feels more Miller-esque, like I, I don't know. I find so this kind of subgenre is really challenging, and by subgenre I mean like keeping things interesting as you're like descending down into a derelict abyss, and there's heavy machinery, and you're trying to give exposition at the same time. And issue 2 is typically where you give it, right? And it's Miller, so he's gonna go about as extreme as you can possibly get. Like, he's gonna turn it up to 13, and when he does that, he's gonna take risks just by how hard he presses down on the particular themes he's going with. I I it This issue does it probably, I mean, it's a challenging bar to get over, and I think Perberg is doing a great job with this particular kind of it feels like there's two competing teams on a heist mission in a way and that's a hard thing to keep interesting to look at, and it's a hard thing to write. And I think they set themselves up for a particularly challenging, like they didn't have to take this approach to get down to the vampire queen. I I actually kind of admire that they decided to make it harder on themselves for taking this particular approach, because it's hard to spread this out over an entire issue and make it interesting. So the effort makes me like it more, and I think I liked it more than some of the action scenes that we got in the first one, which is crazy because Berg is excellent at action scenes, and Millar is good at queuing those up for his artists. What do you think about that? Is it A for effort?
I personally, I liked it less because, it's not the most inspired take to just say, oh, a secret race of horrific people that nobody told you about, in middle school, it kept it a secret. And now the secret's, out and we're all having to deal with this. The core of that story is those people that are trapped and dealing with the destruction of the entire planet around them. And we know nothing about them still. And why did we have to shift into this whole dynamic of a heist Ocean's 11 kind of scenario when it was survival horror in the first one? Like, this is way too abrupt in a 3-issue miniseries to be tapping into all these different genres. Stick to the core and really milk that cow a little bit. Give us a little bit more to digest there and invest into, without dabbling in all these different areas. And yeah, visually, that's what's carrying a lot of the interest here, but it's all hinging on cliches and tropes. The vampire standing outside suddenly on the cell phone, when before they were like eviscerating every person that was walking around in the Vatican and destroying the entire planet, is just such a jarring, tempo and tonal shift, that it's like I just felt like it was kind of a different series at this point, very different read, and I just wasn't that invested in it, especially in such a short amount of time, to see it go in that way.
So I think one of the things that we're all detecting or circling around without being that we should definitely address, the elephant in the room, as it were, is the fact that there's a lot happening in this comic, but the character work is not really there because they don't have time for it. And so Guido is doing action man things, but we really don't know. And we get some character, again, Berg is doing the lion's share here. Every time he draws Guido in a particular pose and we get a little bit of personality from how he's drawn, you get a little bit of character from him. But that's about it. When it comes to our main antagonist, he's just a monster. And the rest of the characters, because they're just kind of there's not enough time to do any character work with them, are simply just archetypes. And I think that's part of what makes the story feel hollow, is the fact that there's no time for character work. But the problem is that we have to care about characters.
Today's comics, Twitless. I don't understand who's talking right now. You really want in-depth character develop? Is it because this isn't like, it's not coded, it's not trying to hit a register as like a superhero comic, so it's treating itself seriously, so it's expecting you to ask of it more.
It's a movie, and the problem is that when you watch a movie, you need the characters. This is a movie in a comic book form. It's written that way, it's presented that way, and so lack of characterization does detract from that. One of the things that superheroes get is the fact that because they have so many, like 100 years of backlog, you get to use shorthand. So, like, you get to shorthand a lot of Peter Parker's characterization through a lot of the stuff that people have read for like hundreds of issues. This is only 3, and you feel that lack because of it.
Yeah, and like what carried Walking Dead for as long as it did, it wasn't because there was all this, backstory and lore about what happened to the world and why everybody was suddenly zombies. It was the drama and tension between the characters and the people that are struggling to survive that circumstance. And Millar is kind of taking a different approach here. He doesn't want to tell you anything about the characters trying to survive the circumstance that they're in. But then the backstory isn't all that, engaging. Secret race of people that actually are responsible for the creation of all society. It's, I feel like we've been down this road before with either aliens or what have you. It's just there had to have been something a little bit more unique about this to justify its existence. Quite frankly, just simply saying vampires surround the Vatican and people need to survive that experience in and of itself is not a monumentally inspired concept that needed 3 issues to be told.
Yeah, I think the misstep here is for a comic called Vatican City. I think Millar needed to lean heavier into the religious overtones here, because the idea that we're doing that sort of secret society story, but it's vampires, is interesting if you're able to actually loop in the spiritual implications that vampires represent, all the way back from Stoker's Dracula, which is the fact that Dracula isn't just a monster, but he is a spiritually coded monster. And he's interacting with a world that has deep Christian themes and an understanding. And so why is it that this world is centered on the Vatican? What aspects and practices of these priests specifically interact with or countered the vampires? What saints and martyrs were the ones who led the church? If you're going to do a story based in the Vatican, if you're actually going to enter into a world where the church is going to be important, make the church actually important. Don't just use it as set dressing. And unfortunately, for someone who I feel a little let down, because I think the pitch of this book, when I first saw it pitched out, it felt like Millar was going to be going through those doors. He was going to be really going, deep into the significance of the church and what it and the implications and ramifications of how that was going to interact. And here it's just a location that a heist happens at. And there's no depth beyond that point, at least in issue 2, for really why we're here, apart from it's a cool setting to draw. And that's just remarkably disappointing, because there's so much rich church history I only know like fragments of, but I know that people like Matt know a lot more of that you could draw from to put into this story, even if it's hinted at. And there's just not that much.
I believe it was in this issue. The only thing I saw reference was the fact that in Rome, no building is allowed to be built higher than the Vatican, because that's considered to be like the center of everything for that city.
St. Peter's Basilica.
Yes, St. Peter's Basilica, exactly.
Yeah, Millar, why didn't you hire me as consultant?
I know. There's so much stuff you could have done here. The whole concept here. I'll give you.
Can I defend like using Catholic imagery cheaply? There's a rich tradition of just saying Catholic imagery cool. Let's just use it and not explain it and not explore it in any depth or detail. Like that is,
I would counter. I'm going to say there's an impoverished history of it, because one of the things that's so frustrating is to see people just do the surface level, when in fact, and this is again another thing where it's just like it feels like a wasted opportunity. The whole concept that runs very deeply. It runs deeply in evangelical circles as well. For like Southern Baptists and stuff. It was funny. We were in church, and person next to me said, "Wow, there's a lot of hymns that we sing that have blood in them." Talk specific, and so I know in Catholicism, where transubstantiation is considered to be literally during the Eucharist the blood of Christ, the concept of blood and the consumption of it is a central idea, and so it's like there's so much to do with blood and the consumption of blood in a religious context. And vampires. It's right there.
Stigmata, crucifixion.
There's so much you can do with the drinking of blood. It's right there. You don't even have to reach very far for it. And again, it's right into those very, and I hate to say it, lazy surface level Catholic imagery cool. And I'm like, it felt like this book was going to be a little more than that, and so that might be my fault for putting those expectations on the book, but that happened.
More than just heist, setting.
Yep.
So yeah.
None of that is Per Berg's fault, though, because he is, like I said, drawing his heart out. As we wrap this up into a close, what are the concluding thoughts you guys have for issue 2?
I think art-wise, this is the brightest issue of the 3. It's got a lot of it's not just the most challenging to draw. It's he puts a lot of dynamism in the coloring, which is commendable, because he didn't have to, because this is just a descent down into a abyss, right? You could have pulled back and saved some energy, but he doesn't save. He puts all his energy on the page, and I appreciate that. And story wise, again, yeah, I just think they put themselves in a trickier situation than they had to, and then they had to overcome that. And I appreciate that. Feels like a risk, and I appreciate risk taking in comics nowadays. So I think I like this issue in particular for that reason, because it's crunchy. It's got a bunch of contours to it, maybe more than necessary, but yeah, again, I appreciate risks.
Yeah, I felt like it was it's an interesting comic to be produced by a major publisher, Dark Horse being the imprint that's putting it out. And I'd love to see more work like this. I just wish that these opportunities were kind of mined a little bit more for more inspired concepts, and not just going into very worn and familiar territory with everything that's being executed here. There's a lot of opportunity for very rich exploration for the setting and the characters that are involved, but it's just not adequately explored, and it kind of just rushes through what it felt like it needed to achieve in this issue without going a little bit beyond the surface, which would have been nice for a change. I agree that the art is carrying quite a heavy load here in terms of making the story and the scenery and all the characters still interesting and engaging to continue to read and experience, but we're really going to need a massive payoff in issue 3 to justify producing a trade paperback for the series.
Thank you very much for checking out the video. Subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more.